Hello and welcome to today's lunchtime learning. Today we are going to be talking about the knockdown stitch of Embrilliance Enthusiast. This is a one-button function that allows you to add a flattening stitch for when stitching on napped fabrics such as towels or Sherpa, and we're heading into Sherpa season, so you might want to check out this video and let's hop in the software and see all the different features that are available in the latest knockdown stitch of Embrilliance Enthusiast. So here I have a design. Now, not all designs need to have a knockdown stitch behind them. However, if we look at this, zoom in a little closer, can you see that this is a sketch design? It really would get lost if stitched on a fuzzy fabric. So adding a knockdown stitch flattens the loft or the pile of the stitches so that this will actually kind of pop. So let's see how we do that. Under the first thing you need to do is have any design open on your design page. When you have Enthusiast installed and go to the utility menu, you'll see this option that says add knockdown stitching. Since I have nothing selected on my screen, it's going to open the dialog box and ask me about the settings I would like to add for the knockdown on this particular design. Now, the first two settings here are the density and the stitch length. These have nothing to do with the shape. They have to do with how the design is filled. Now, just so that we can see what I'm talking about, I'm going to use the default settings and click OK. Here we have our knockdown has been added, and if we zoom in and look close, you can actually see the density is the distance between each row of stitches. So if you wanted those stitches to be closer together, you would decrease the number, which compresses or makes those rows of stitches closest together. So this now, the distance between the stitches, that is your density. Your stitch length, and let me turn on our needle points so that we can see it clearly. Go into my view menu. Every single little dot in this design is a needle point. So the default density, or changing the stitch length in your knockdown stitching, will put those needle points closer together. These are simply options that you can use to adjust for your particular project. Let me turn off of our stitch points and go back out to 100% so we can see what it is that we're working on. Now, if we want to change, do you notice there's holes in this? The way that knockdown is created is that it takes whatever is going to be added the knockdown, and since we didn't select anything, it puts it around everything, and it uses an inflation value. Let me change the color of this knockdown. It's just something else. Let me make it a completely unique color, such as blue, really dark. Ooh, that's really crazy. But I'm going to choose all of my design. So let me go here and choose all of the stitches. So we're leaving this as just a reference. I'm going to go to my utility menu, choose add knockdown stitching, and where it says inflation, I'm going to choose a smaller number. So I'm going to go down to 2 millimeters. And it's going to add knockdown, when I click the OK button, to everything that was selected using a 2 millimeter inflation. Can you see, let me put this one first, move earlier. Can you see how by choosing a smaller inflation, it hugged the letters more and made more holes in our design? This is completely up to you whether you want to. This is a look. There are no right or wrong. It's just an option that you have. Let me delete both of these. I'm going to go back to my utility menu, and just to show you something, if I only wanted knockdown around the top, I select the top lettering, go to utility, choose add knockdown stitching. I'm just going to set the defaults again, click OK, and it just adds knockdown to whatever is selected based upon the parameters that we had. Lots of changes in our latest knockdown for Enthusiast. I'm going to select this and hit delete. Let's just go to the utility menu, choose add knockdown stitching, and choose a higher inflation. Oh, why not? 5 millimeters, just so that you can see what the difference is. When you click OK, notice there are fewer holes because the shape of the knockdown is further away from the objects. As soon as the knockdown starts tracing the design, as soon as it cannot do 5 millimeters because of something else that is there, it stops and it takes a turn and starts continuing around. Just as if you were to put two pencils together and trace around the outside of a design. So it will actually add a border. So the larger the inflation number, the further away the stitches are. The larger number of the density, so you're typing in a higher number, the further the stitches will be apart. Smaller number puts the density back together. Smaller number puts the inflation closer to the design that you're working on. Let me delete this. Let's leave the settings that it is. And notice that my underlay right now is 4185. I'm going to delete this. Keep in mind 4185. In fact, just for fun, I'm going to click on my lettering tool here. I'm going to choose single lettering, and we said 4185, just that we know what that number is. And I'm going to choose that color just to be something different. Click OK. So I don't want to add knockdown to this, but I'm going to select my design and all of the stitches. I'm going to go to my utility menu and choose add knockdown stitching, and you'll notice there is an option that says bi-directional. So it's still keeping the same inflations and it has its own stitch length. It has its own default settings for bi-directional, but what this means is that it's basically placing a knockdown stitching in one direction, and then it's going to add another stitching in the other direction, kind of like creating a mesh knockdown for when that's something you want to have on your project. So I'm clicking bi-directional, click OK, and notice that the number of stitches in this knockdown is increased. So keep that in mind when you are adding more stitches. It's going to give it a different look. It's going to add more stitches because it's basically doing two knockdowns on top of each other, but there may be times that you want to have that as an option in your software. So that is what the knockdown stitching in Embrilliance Enthusiast is all about. Hopefully you found this video helpful. It's up to you to make the choice of what settings you want for your project, but Embrilliance gives you those options so you can have a play and learn what it is that works best for you. Thank you for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of your week.